Hello, my lovely rose garden. I'm Avalon.
And I'm Ray.
And welcome back to Throne of Ass, chapter 37. I think the last chapter was one of the worst ones in terms of plot making sense.
Yep.
And now we get well, it's very short.
At least we have that. We
Anyway.
have that to save us.
I'm gonna go back to my one true love, Vine, as I inform you that in this chapter, Alyssa is a church girl who go to church.
And read her Bible.
Thank you. I knew you wouldn't let me down.
I'm a millennial. Vine runs through my veins.
Veins? No, vines. Here we go. Seated in a pew in the rear of the spacious temple.
We make our own fun here.
Alyssa kept her mouth closed so tightly that it hurt. Her teeth were still red. She didn't need anyone else noticing. The temple was a beautiful space, built entirely from glass. The limestone covering the floor was all that remained of the original stone temple. So it's not entirely glass then, you lying. I'm being mean.
I'm just over here like, so she hates the castle because it's all made of glass, but like the chapel is fine. It's all made of glass, but it's fine.
I guess because it's on the ground level?
Eh.
I don't know. I don't know why I'm imagining that she's afraid of heights. I don't know that she is. I don't think she is. I just put that in there just for funsies.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I hear Frodo chewing.
Mm-hmm.
Nom nom. Which the King of Aderlin had destroyed when he decided to replace it with the glass structure. 2 columns of about 100 rosewood pews. 2 columns.
2 columns?
I get what she's going for, but
2 rows.
Columns are vertical, bitch.
Yeah, 2 rows. 2 rows.
Stretched beneath a vaulted glass ceiling that let in so much light that no candles were needed during the day. Snow lay piled upon the translucent roof, casting patterns of sunshine throughout. Sun does not shine through snow. If it has been snowing as much as she claims it has, it is dark in there.
Yeah.
When we get a little bit of snowfall on our deck roof, it is dark.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and we don't even get that much snow. But okay, whatever, not important. As the walls were also glass, the stained windows above the altar appeared to hover in midair. She stood to peer over the heads of those sitting in front of her. Short. Dorian and the Queen sat in the first pew.
Short.
You're a short motherfucker and nobody likes you. Short! Dorian and the Queen sat in the first pew, a row of guards immediately behind. The Duke and Caltaine sat on the other side of the aisle, and behind them were Nehemia and several others she didn't recognize. She didn't spy Nox or the other remaining champions, or Cain. They'd let her come to this, but not the ball? Yeah, that's a special privilege. You're being privileged right now. Sit down, Kaol growled, pulling at her green gown. Down growled gown. Good job with the whatever the word is for when words rhyme inside of a sentence. It's not alliteration. There's a word for it. That was actually a fun line to read out loud. Good job. She made a face and dropped onto the cushioned bench. Several people stared at her. They wore gowns and jackets so elaborate that she wondered if the ball had been moved to lunchtime. The high priestess walked onto the stone platform and raised her hands above her head. The folds of her midnight blue gossamer robe fell around her, and her white hair was long and unbound. An 8-pointed star was tattooed upon her brow in a shade of blue that matched her gown, its sharp lines extending to her hairline. Welcome all, and may the blessings of the goddess and all her gods be upon you. Her voice echoed across the chamber to reach even those in the back. Oh, know. So we might actually get some, like, world building. Like, an actual interesting seeming character that has some unique design choices here.
We will likely never see her again.
Alyssa stifled a yawn. God damn it! If you sleep through this, you asshole! I want lore! Feed me! She respected the gods, if they existed, and when it suited her to ask for their assistance, but religious ceremonies were brutal. It had been years and years since she'd attended anything of this sort, and as the high priestess lowered her arms and stared at the crowd, the assassin shifted in her seat. It would be the usual prayers, then the Yulmus prayers, then the sermon, then the songs, and then the procession of the gods. Great, I want context for literally any of that. Tell me anything about that. What the fuck is the procession of the gods? What gods are there? What do you even have gods of?
Really kind of annoyed at this whole oh yeah, there is a religion in this universe that, you know, isn't a super direct parallel to any religion in, you know, our universe. We're not going to go into detail about it. Just whatever. And I'm like, come on now.
You know how much goddamn work I put into developing a religion for the Stellar Eclipse series that you're barely even gonna fucking see? You know how much work I put into developing a lot of the Stellar Eclipse series that you're never gonna see?
Imagine creating a universe where it's frowned upon to tell exact time.
Do you know? Do you know what I had to fucking do to create this universe where minutes and hours don't exist?
Or at least the vernacular for them.
Yeah, the concept of telling time by a clock doesn't fucking exist. You just have to go by vibe, right? You just gotta go by, like, dawn, noon, sunset. Seasons exist, so those are not the same time every day. And everyone just has to get really good at being able to guess how long since dawn or how long until noon it's gonna be, so that they can arrange, because this is a modern world, this is not a ancient civilization. People got doctor's appointments and dentists and shit, and they gotta make appointments for that without hours or minutes. And it works. Because I make it work, damn it. Read Stellar Eclipse. I worked so goddamn hard on that series. I've been rereading it because I'm working on a new edition that I hope to publish with the third book of the main trilogy that I will hopefully have a workable draft of this year. So now would be a great time to get into Stellar Eclipse, or any of my other books. You can support me by going to RoselinBooks.com, or becoming a supporter on Patreon, Ko-fi, or a member of this channel. And if you do, you get to look at my cringe, because we are recording a podcast series where we are looking at my middle school writing with the same critical lens that we look at this piece of shit. So if you want that, it is supporter exclusive. It will never be made public, because I would rather fucking die. But you can have it for $2 a month. Think about it.
Think about it.
Think about it more than Sarah J. Maas thought about this. Okay, it won't be hard. You're squirming already, Kale said under his breath. What time is it? She whispered, and he pinched her arm. Today, the priestess said, is the day on which we celebrate the end and the beginning of the great cycle. Today is the day on which the great goddess gave birth to her firstborn, Loomis, lord of the gods. With his birth, love was brought into Aeriel, and it banished the chaos that arose from the gates of the word. A weight pressed on her eyelids. She had woken up so early, and slept so little after that encounter with Nehemia. Unable to stop, Alyssa wandered into the land of sleep, and land of sleep is, like, capitalized. So she slept through the whole goddamn thing.
Also, I'm just over here like, if it's not a literal place, don't capitalize it.
We don't even get like a fun dream sequence. We just time skip Tildy to the end.
I don't even want to die right now.
At least we're tilting to the procession of the gods, so at least the question of what are the gods and what are they the gods of will be answered.
Well, let's see.
Let's
see.
At least we have that.
Let's see.
It's a crumb, but I'll take it. Get up, Kaol snarled in her ear. Now. She sat up with a jolt, the world bright and foggy. Several lesser nobles in her pew laughed silently. She gave Kaol an apologetic look and turned her gaze to the altar. The high priestess had finished her sermon, and the songs of Yolmus were over. She only had to sit through the procession of the gods, and then she would be free. How long was I asleep? She whispered. You were asleep until the procession of gods. I think that should give you a pretty good indication of how long you were asleep. He didn't respond. How long was I asleep? She asked again, and noticed a hint of red in his cheeks. You were asleep, too. Until you began drooling on my shoulder. Such a self-righteous young man, she cooed, and he poked her leg. Pay attention. A choir of priestesses stepped off the platform. Alysicles yawned, but nodded with the rest of the congregation as the choir gave their blessings. An organ sounded, and everyone leaned to stare down the aisle for the procession of the gods. The sound of pattering footsteps filled the temple, and the congregation stood. Each blindfolded child was no more than 10 years old, and though they looked rather foolish dressed in the costumes of the gods, there was something charming about it. Every year 9 children were chosen. If a child stopped before you, you received the blessing of the god and the small gift the child carried as a symbol of the god's favor. See, now that is a charming and folksy little tradition.
Yeah.
That is the kind of shit I want to know about. This sounds fucking awesome. I love, let's just blindfold some kids, put them in ridiculous costumes, and if they stand in front of you, you get shit. That's fucking way better than Christmas.
That's fun.
That's fun. That's cool. That's original. That's a fun idea. Do more of this. Include more details about this. Farnor, god of war, stopped at the front row near Dorian, but then moved to the right, across the aisle, to give the miniature silver sword to Duke Parrington. Not surprising. Foreshadowing. Parrington gets the god of war blessing. Clad in glistening wings, Loomis, god of love, strode past her. She crossed her arms. What a foolish tradition. She's thinking it, but still.
Yeah.
It still felt appropriate to put it in the Harpy Shrill's voice of like, oh man, the god of love didn't give me the blessing. This is dumb. Again, childishness. Just purely childish behavior from this grown-ass woman. I know she's like 17 or 18 or whatever, but like, compared to the kid in the costume, that's a grown-ass adult. Deanna, goddess of the hunt and maidens.
She just straight up.
Yeah, sure, we'll just yank Diana out of Roman mythos and just throw her in here. Fine, that's cool. Like, at least Farnor sounds more or less original. It's like, I don't know, it sounds just kind of fantasy-ish as a name. Loomis obviously is, light, but being the god of love is kind of a nice touch. Yeah.
And he's clearly like a Jesus allegory or whatever.
Yeah.
He's the Lord of the gods. But no, this is just straight up.
And then Diana. Take a shot for any Hellenic or whatever you would call the Roman equivalent practitioners in the chat.
I'm sorry. I don't have a drinky, so
I'm sorry.
Say I'm sorry.
Look how they've massacred your girl. I mean, not massacred. She is It's not like she's the goddess of, like, fertility or something.
I'm just sorry
But-
that she had to be included in this. Y'all deserve better.
Sorry out there. Alyssa shifted from one foot to the other, wishing she hadn't demanded that Kale give her the aisle seat. To her dread and dismay, the girl stopped before her and removed the blindfold. She was a pretty little thing. Her blonde hair hung in loose curls, and her brown eyes were flecked with green. The girl smiled at Alyssa and reached to touch the assassin's forehead. Alyssa back began sweating as she felt hundreds of eyes upon her. May Briana, the huntress and protector of the young... Oh, wait, no, I gotta do my fucking Prunella voice for this. It's been a while since I've done Prunella.
It's Prunella.
May Briana, the huntress and protector of the young, bless and keep you this year. I bestow upon you this golden arrow as the symbol of her power and good graces.
And then she hands her like a flamethrower.
The girl bowed as she extended the slender arrow. Kale prodded her back and Alyssa grabbed the arrow.
You'll miss blessings to you,
the girl said, and Alyssa nodded her thanks. She gripped the arrow as the girl bounded away. It couldn't be used, of course. It was made of solid gold.
It'll fetch a nice price.
I know, right? Like, why are you complaining?
With a shrug, Alyssa handed the arrow to Kale.
I suppose I'm not allowed to have this,
she said, sitting down with the rest of the crowd. He put it back in her lap. I wouldn't want to test the gods. She stared up at him for a moment. Did he look different? Something had changed in his face. Nudging him with an elbow, Alyssa grinned. If that arrow does not come back to be useful later, I will do something to this book.
If it doesn't, I'm just gonna, like... I'm just gonna lie down.
Well, anyway.
It's gonna be sad.
That was chapter 37. Take me to church.
I'll worship like a... But yeah, I'm just like, oh god. Okay.
Well, at least it was mercifully short. Sorry for you all that this is such a short episode this week, but hopefully you enjoyed it nonetheless. We got a little peek at some lore. We could have had a lot more of it, but bitch fell asleep. So I guess the author just decided, we're not going to include that.
It feels like this chapter would have been longer if maybe she included like actual world building and stuff instead of just being all like, oh, I guess you can have this little bit, but whatever. But it's all like,
as it is, it's barely more than 3 pages, and I'm wondering why it wasn't just tacked on to the end of the last chapter.
I don't know.
Because that chapter wasn't all that long either. You could have combined these 2 chapters if you weren't going to add that much more detail anyway. And, like, even if I had just gotten a little summarized overview of what the service was about, that still would have been something. It wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been
where she
as much as I would have wanted.
Literally just blanked out all the world building.
Yeah, literally it just time skip tilted through the whole thing. We didn't even get like, oh, this is the prayer of this, or the hymn of this epic, or, oh, and she preached about some kind of sermon that maybe might have something to do with what's going on in the world. Like,
yeah, like, listen, when you send a character to a religious service in a book, there needs to be parallels.
Yeah, something...
There, like, religion has a specific use in literature where it needs to kind of parallel the morality of the situation in some way. Whether it is agreeing with something bad going on or disagreeing with it, it needs to parallel something because we have literary shorthand for a reason, basically.
Yeah.
I'm probably not getting this across as well as I want to, but yeah, like, when religion crops up in a book, it is literary shorthand. This has to mean something. This has to reflect the current situation in some way and the morality focus of it.
Or you could just shit the bed and do nothing.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what she did.
Yeah.
Like, I think that this might be a lot of why, a sort of like a background reason, actually, why I don't enjoy this book is because it kind of ignores a lot of literary shorthand, which just kind of goes to shows that Sarah J. Maas isn't really that good of an author.
Yeah, because it's not like, oh, she's doing something fresh and original. It's, oh, you have zero clue what the literary canon is, do you?
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, there's this saying in art, which is what I always harken back to just generally, is that you got to know the rules before you can break them.
Yeah.
She doesn't know the rules.
Yeah, like, this is not a meaningful subversion of a literary trope of how religion and churches are often used in medieval settings. This is just, well, they went to church, but I didn't want to put any effort into developing the actual belief system of this world, so Selena's just gonna sleep through it.
Yeah, and then, like, only awaken for, like, the last part,
And yeah.
where, you know, she gets a god's blessing.
Yeah.
But it's like, you have to use, if you're going to send a character to church, you gotta use that. And you gotta use that for something.
It's not even difficult. It's practically served up to you on a silver platter.
Yeah.
There's a very easy, in-universe way to have a character that you don't have to worry about developing because they're just a part of the clergy. They're a supporting character, minorist of minor. All they gotta do is just say some shit about whatever the message of this book is that you want to word salad.
And
but just, you could have the religious person just fucking say the message that you intend the book to have and call it done.
Or say the antithesis.
Yeah.
Given that, like, this is supposed to be, you know, like, the state-sponsored religion kind of thing. You know, the religion that wiped out all the magic or whatever. So you can say the opposite of what's going on, and you can point out that, oh yeah, like,
this is bad.
This is bad. And, you know, everyone believes that, you know, it's good to be gone with, do away with all the magic and all this stuff. Like, you can do something with this, and you don't.
You could have her tell the story of how the god Loomis or whatever eradicated magic and got rid of it, like, and everyone's like, yay, it's this great thing to celebrate.
And then you have the main character react to that, and yeah, it's kind of ham-fisted, but sending a character to church, just in general, is sort of like we're going to reiterate what the morals are here.
Here is where we can establish what the moral standard of the universe at large within the story is, and whether or not the character aligns with that, and where they may differ. I've been rereading Stellar Eclipse, because sometimes it's good to reread your own work, especially if you're looking to, you know, make some improvements. And I'm looking at...
yeah.
Bolton. Okay, Bolton. My boy. Love him to death. He is an atheist.
He's an edgy Reddit atheist.
Yeah, like,
we love him.
He does not believe in the supernatural, like, at all. He does not subscribe to the idea that there is anything greater at play in the world than what we can perceive with our five senses. He has a much more nuanced, rich, and complicated take on religion than fucking sleeping through
the service.
Like, he is one of those atheists who, like, does not like religion. Like, thinks of it as a waste of time. And the first book deals with a religious cult. And instead of him just being like, oh, I'm going to research this. Oh, this is really dumb because I don't personally subscribe to it. Throw it all out. He's like, okay,
this is what they believe.
People believe this.
Yeah.
I need to pay attention to what these people believe, because whether or not I agree with it It is the basis for their actions, which are gonna have material consequences.
Their actions, their morality, their way of thinking, their way of life.
So,
you know, important things to note in a world-building scenario.
So he's like, yes, I will go to the library and do research about this thing that I personally don't have an interest in, because, surprise, it's important to the plot. Imagine having things that are important to the plot that your character isn't personally invested in. And they just have to work through that shit.
Anyway, I think that'll
do it.
enough bitching from me.
I just wanted to plug Stellar Eclipse one more time.
Yeah.
Because it is the worst selling of all of my works. For obvious reasons. It is the hardest premise to kind of buy into, but I promise it's good. Please.
I'm surprised it's the worst selling.
Oh, yeah, like by a lot. And it's a series too, so
Oh yeah.
you wouldn't think this for how many YA series exist in the world that just seem to go on forever, but it is actually harder to sell a series.
Yeah,
than
like
a
well,
one-off.
certainly if you're indie publishing.
Yeah. Because
Like for a trad pub, it's like desirable to have a series at this point because that's just marketing, baby.
yeah, but even then, it's not as prevalent in TradPub because they actually have marketing budgets, but there is always that,
Well,
I guess, return on investment when it comes to the interest of a series.
it's kind of the whole thing where it's all like, with TradPub, you want your first book to be able to stand on its own, but if you have the promise of a series behind it, like, that turns kind of into a cash cow.
Yeah,
Like Sarah J. Maas.
like there's some longevity
Yeah.
built in. And typically, you know, what happens is people start with the first book, and I'm guilty of this myself, because the longer a series goes on, the more you see readers dropping off because other things come up in their lives. Even if it's a series they really like, a lot of the times they just, you know, they might be hyped for the first 1 or 2 books, and then by the 3rd or 4th, you start seeing the numbers kind of go down. As an indie pub who does not do marketing very well, very rarely do I talk about my books. It's very difficult. I think I have sold maybe 10 copies of the sequel in the 5 years now that it's been out.
Oof.
So yeah, it's hard. It's hard out here for. I mean, no, it's probably not as low as. Well, I'm only thinking of paperbacks. I'm sure ebook is a little bit higher, but yeah, it's hard to sell a series. So if you want to read a series with good world building, at least in my opinion, because I worked really, really hard on it.
It is good world building. Don't sell yourself short.
I like it a lot. Like I picked up Cloudless Rain, which is the first book, just to, you know, like I said, I'm working on a new edition, and I read the whole thing in 2.5 hours, so that was fun. But also I wrote it, so
yeah,
don't take my word for it. Anyway, you should read it, and I'm gonna stop talking now because I'm just vomiting out words at this point. Bye.
Bye.
Keep growing till next time.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. My deepest gratitude goes out to my supporters, who you'll see on screen here and also in the description. If you'd like, you could become a member of the Rose Garden by supporting me on Patreon, Ko-fi, or by buying my books. And don't forget that for an indie author like me, every like, comment, and subscription is a huge help. Good night, my lovely Rose Garden.